Welcome once again. This is Ray Orsini here on behalf of MSP Media Network at IT Nation Secure in Orlando, Florida. Joining me is Jeff Bishop. This is a mouthful. EVP and General Manager of Product Management and Asio Platform here at ConnectWise. How you doing, buddy? That's a lot.
Yeah, I get called a lot of things. It's not usually the title, but
it's like, hey, given the amount of time you've been here at ConnectWise, like, is it just you keep adding words like to your title at this point? It's just
I don't know. It's like they're trying to be descriptive, but not descriptive. That GM thing. Like,
what does he do? Stuff. He's stuff. So you've been
janitor.
Doing,
that's what
janitor.
I typically. Yeah.
So you've been doing stuff at ConnectWise for a long time, but here now you're in charge of product management. Specifically, Asio's your baby, right?
Yeah. We kicked that off quite a few years back. You couldn't ask to try to do it at a crazier time. We literally kicked off the very first development sprint the second week of February 2020.
So February 20. Yeah. Oops. Yeah. So, by the way, guys, the offices are shutting down. So, looking at then, and to get to that first real announcement of using Asio. I get Asio is pipework, plumbing, the connective tissue, the back end processing. But to get that integrated with products, it took a minute to get RMM in there.
It did.
How long, do you remember how long that took? It was at least 2 years?
So every bit of. We probably started the bulk of the RMM work late 2020 going into 2021.
Yeah.
And then there was a ton of work in 2021 and in 2022 to kind of get it out to market and where it was at. And that was, rebuilding, scripting, alerting, monitoring, policies, patching, So we, I often get everybody's like, oh, it's the legacy continuum product. It's like, come on. It's that architecture for sure.
That's like saying the Mach-E is the legacy Mustang. It's iterative. It's not the same thing.
There's still some pieces there, right? Because we brought those partners along with it. We kept some of those pieces in place, but the bulk, 90% of it, was kind of rebuilt from the ground up, and we built those services. But when we built those services, we had to do something that most product engineering teams never have to think about. They normally go, "Oh, I'm building an RMM. I worry about RMM." Right? I'm building policies or patching, right? Or policies, probably great. I'm building policies, so I just got to worry about policies for RMM. Nope. You got to worry about policies for the PSA and Bright Gauge and Screen Connect and all the other products. And they're like, wait, I got to worry about that too? I'm like,
notoriously, lab tech ticketing, right? Automate ticketing and ConnectWise managed ticketing. Sorry, I'm a really old ScamSuite user. It's hard for me. The best thing you guys ever did is went back to the Screen Connect name. Thank you.
Yeah.
So PSA and Automate, notoriously their locations didn't sync for a long time, and their ticketing still doesn't sync. So at some point, you guys are you're answering the Microsoft challenge of, we remember the number of rewrites they've done and how often there's legacy code and blah, blah. Remember the Longhorn days that never came, and Windows 8. And we always talk about the legacy code that does hold back such a long lasting operating system. Manage is very much the same. Lab tech is very much the same. Monolithic structures that were built in a different era, but have evolved to answer all the needs. Now you get to rewrite how it works. How has that been? Like that's got to be, Microsoft doesn't have that opportunity, so that's awesome.
It's a lot of fun. What we're trying to do is walk that very tight rope of not making it difficult for the existing partners, so they don't feel like they're having to uplift and move things, but also give them access to all the net new technology, right? So that's a bit of a line. It would have been way easier just to go build a new one, and just say, hey, let's just move everything over here. We'll reteach you how to use the product. You could do that way faster than what we did. What we tried to do is
completely undermine all the education ConnectWise has done over the last 15 years. With partners, which is a huge part of the ConnectWise premise.
You got it.
Of the ConnectWise University. Like that's a huge thing. And so if you write something from the ground up, brand new interfaces, new everything, and you forget the rest, you have to retrain somebody. It's just like doing a stack change. It's just like doing a migration.
the key thing was getting those sort of common services rebuilt, right?
Yeah.
We rebuilt like companies and sites and contacts and devices, and we're still working on the devices. That's another couple months out, right? But started getting the new audit service, the new workflow engine, the new ticketing service, and so now what we're doing, like with the PSA, is great. Is okay. We're going to start to bring the PSA and Asio closer. So what does that mean? Well, we got to shift the PSA to start to use the Asio company sites, contacts, devices, ticketing service. As they do that, there is no more syncing data. There's no more integrations.
Right.
It's just
the same data
thing.
store.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk a little bit about the cascading waterfall of, you had a long time from announcement to actual product announcement, like where you guys are using this. There was a good bit of time. But we talked about, now it kind of feels like you're iterating much faster. You're able to integrate new products because you kind of figured out the process, maybe? Or did you answer questions that are foundational and now you can just add on things a lot quicker? What did you learn?
Gosh, I'm gonna write a book one day of all the mistakes that we made.
Well, I made because we're in the AI era. How many MSPs? We just heard how many MSPs are adopting AI today to use the things. They're going to have these same challenges. They're going to say, all of my data is in these different data stores. Now I got to combine it. And they're going to go through the pain points of figuring out the wrong way before they figure out the right way. So that's why you've done this at a large scale. So what can we learn from this?
I think some of it is foundational principles. Like, don't jump in too quick. Go back and understand the root issues and problems of some of the things that you need to solve. But balance things. If I could go back and, hindsight being 2020 kind of things, I would have done we had to do all the architectural work. We had to do that back end. But what I would have done also is done a little bit more innovation at the same time. I think we were maybe too heavy on the back end, so our partners weren't seeing some of the innovation. So maybe we were like 90-10, and we probably should have been more like 60-40, 70-30.
Well, it sounded like nothing was going on publicly, but you guys were working feverishly. I mean, obviously.
Every day, right? I mean, it was nights, weekends. It was across the board. But now a lot of those Lego blocks are in place. So other things that we learned, definitely the UI layout and the design framework was definitely a learning curve. We started building and moving pages over, and then we realized, man, what if we turn this all into pods? And what if you take every page that's in the PSA and you say, we're not going to move a page over, we're going to convert every page into pods, and those pods can show up anywhere. You start doing that due diligence, you realize that like an agreement pod exists in like 50 places. So we were building the same thing 50 times. And so when we started recognizing those patterns, we were like, okay, we got to go back and now change our design framework. And I give tons of kudos to our UX team, both on the engineering and the design side of it. They came to us and said, this is silly. Let's don't do that. Let's turn it all into pods. Because now when we create the pods, we can start to move all the pods around.
So the users can make their single pane of glass as they see
how they see it. And that was one of those aha moments that when we first started kicking off was sort of, we'll get there eventually. We didn't put it at the foundation, and we should have at the very beginning.
That's a common SaaS principle. That's a common software principle. Do everything based on role based. So you have the finance pages, you have the service pages. That's a common thing. That's a common theme in software. But now the move towards persona-based, you know what I mean, where you may have a manager that delves in finance and project, or delves in, and being able to create your own quote-unquote single pane of glass, very much like, ConnectWise 360. Having that single pane of glass is important. And having those malleable pods makes a lot of sense. But that takes time. That takes a lot of work. Breaking
down those barriers as well. Like, product people typically love their product. They love their baby, right? So when you start talking to them about, this ticketing needs to be a centralized service, everybody's like, no, my ticketing, right? Like, no, it's everybody's ticketing, right? It's not only everybody's ticketing, it's also all the third party and the vendors that want to come in here's ticketing. And also, by the way, this ticketing doesn't just need to support stuff that ConnectWise creates. We need to be able to bring in Salesforce tickets and other competing product tickets.
Absolutely.
You need to be able. This is a platform as a service. It is not just our products. We got to make sure we're catering and designing so that you can run your entire business on this.
Tell me if you guys are looking at this, because to me, I look at people complain about automation, documentation. To me, creating documentation gives you the workflow because you have to think it out for anything you're doing. That becomes the basis, that workflow becomes the basis of the checklist for the creating automation. That's the point. And now you have documentation and automation. Because those two things don't always happen together. We've all been at fault of that, so I'm not going to whatever. But we look at AI, because we can't have a conversation without AI today. And AI involves ingesting data sources. So it strikes me that, and part of the challenge of ingesting those data sources is refining the data in a way that's understandable. And if you have to get that from 16 different systems, I can see how that's challenging. But when you have the same data store for all the ticketing, all the everything because of Asio, are you guys going to now enable, at some point in the future, MSPs to have their own informed data model based on what their data in Asio is?
Yeah, I think I mean, you took us, if we're designing a skateboard to a car, you took us to the car.
Yeah.
What I'll say is, like, maybe I'm back at a bicycle level.
Okay.
As we progress.
So this is not tomorrow. This is not a Connect announcement.
But what we have started building out is, which I love, is like a mapping and ingestion service.
Yes.
Okay. Imagine that.
That's so smart.
Imagine that moment. Take cloud monitoring management, SaaS monitoring management, backup monitoring management. Even device management inside the RMM.
Yep.
Those are sort of defined schemas, right?
Yep.
Column 1 is this. Column 2 is this. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Typically, we would go in and say, "Oh, you want to bring in some network monitoring tool?" We partner up with Avik and Domos on this stuff. Avik, is sort of the principal there, and both great tools.
Yep.
But we bring that in, and we hard code it into the system. What if you could sit back and you as a user say, "Show me the schema for devices," and it pops up and shows you the table, and it says, "Do you want to add a new row?"
Right.
And and then it says, "Okay, column 1 is this," and you go find that API and you just drag it in. And now that there's a drop down that it exists, and you can pick from that. And then column 2, you bring the API, and column 3, you bring the API.
That's what markup did for us. That's what HTML did for us. That where you had to find GraphQL, like that's what it did for us, where we could have an understandable plain language model and can still use that to refine data so that computers can understand it. Because prompt engineering, its own freaking data science on its own. That's amazing. And I know, and the reason I say this is because ConnectWise historically, as I said, I used to be a Scam Suite user. One of the things that drew me to it was the blueprints, and the ConnectWise University. Yeah. And it wasn't as much, hey, here's your tools to get it done, but this is how you can do it. This is how if you want to follow this blueprint, do these things. And if you want to change it a little bit, do those things. My collections process came from, not one for one, but it was inspired by ConnectWise University. And so MSPs today know they need to use a GPT. They know they need to use AI. They know that they need to inform a data set, but the how to get that done is notoriously missing. That education is still missing. So it strikes me as ConnectWise, with their education background and the Asio of what it's trying to be, strikes me as perfectly poised for in the future to be that mechanism.
It's a segue in that we didn't talk about, but it's a cool segue. So I am leaving out of Tampa next Friday. I'm flying over to India with Alan Comet, our new success officer. And one of the things that we're doing while we're there is to go work with our NOC and our help desk, but we'll start there with the NOC team, is to start to segregate out a team that will start working on automation, hyper automation, right? So obviously that means integrating more products in, having more actions and triggers there by default, creating some out-of-the-box workflows. Fine. I mean, that's almost table stakes. The other thing that we're doing is to start to set up a program with our machine learning team to start to train the NOC on how to on prompts, how to build out models, how to maintain models, how to look for, as they start to drift out. And how do you recognize that? And then how do you start to train the secondary and the backup models to come in and replace that whole architecture of that? Because what I do see is a couple things. One, we're going to need it for our own expert services team, for our own products and everything
100%.
else. I also kind of think that we're going to see the MSP space start helping their customers build their own models and understanding prompts and understanding the terminology and the lingo and how to use it. So there'll be tons of tools that'll pop up here, but again, everything that happens in an enterprise space, often isn't cost effective for our world. It also isn't usually multi-tenant, multi-tiered the way we need it to. So I think
there's a lot of work.
So we are starting to train a team that can then also go help the MSPs if they start to say, I need to create a model for X customer. How do I do that?
Right, because that who is it? Jimmy Hatzel, Hats AI, just started getting into that. The pro services consulting to teach MSPs how to serve their clients. I was just talking to Will Dowling about that, and go if you haven't seen his podcast, Demystifying AI, fantastic.
Okay.
But talking about that, if we don't educate our clients, they're going to use AI. Our staff is going to use AI.
Yeah.
There's the business need to make the guardrails, qualify what's proper AI use, responsible AI statement that you guys talked about last year.
Security, make sure you're not putting data out there you don't want out there. How do you control it?
But how to best use it, right? That's a big thing because they're going to do it otherwise. If you say you can't use ChatGPT, they'll use Bard or Gemini or whatever. You're not going to win that battle. You know what I mean? So
we're going back to the music industry trying to stop Napster kind of thing.
Napster and then LimeWire and then FrostWire. It's just the chasing your tail.
Yeah.
But I look at this stuff and I look at what ConnectWise is doing. And so a lot of things, what I hear, we'll wrap it up because I know you're busy. But the thing is this, we talk about MSPs that turn into vendors. ConnectWise, it's been a minute, but was an MSP that turned into a vendor.
Yeah.
That built something because they needed to use it themselves. And then they took that information, educated other MSPs on how to do it. This seems to be of teaching yourself internally how to use this and then turning around teach MSPs. That seems that you are continuing that same tradition started so long ago.
I appreciate the context and the connection to the history, right? But yeah, I think we have to do it. We're learning like everybody else. I'm sure there's experts out there. I think we're good. We're not experts yet.
Right.
I've got
none of us are.
I got a great team, but we're learning how to bring AI in to the MSP space for our own use and for you. I think it's such an opportunity, right? It's like when cloud hit and the 365 hit, and the MSPs were like, well, what is this going to do for my business?
Right.
And is this going to?
But I can't
is
sell.
this all going away?
I can't sell exchange licenses.
And now they're more successful now than they were then, right?
Yeah.
And I think machine learning, AI is going to replace all of our jobs.
No.
It's going to create such amazing opportunities. It's just making sure that we embrace it, learn, and kind of find ways to help the end clients embrace this as well. So I think that's where we'll see it go.
I love it. And I love looking forward to what we'll see with Asio and all the new integrations and just all the cool stuff. Jeff, thank you so much, dude. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Jeff Bishop, EVP and GM of Product Management at Asio Platform and Connect.
I'm going to go on to LinkedIn and change it to janitor today.
There you go. All right, buddy. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
If you found this episode eye-opening, catch more MSP Dispatch at 10 a.m. throughout the week. Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.
This has been a broadcast of the MSP Media Network.